For some reason, I was like, let me think of a cool spot where to sit, and I came up with this. It seems actually pretty awkward, and I can't even sit up straight, but that's okay, it's okay. So now that the main hoop and rear supports are done, next thing to move on to were the side hoops. So here are the rules for the side hoops. So the first step in this process is to remove the windshield so that way we can gain enough access and clearance to put the side hoops in place. So first going to remove the wipers. And then I'm just going to remove the screws that hold on this trim piece under the windshield. So now we're just going to take the wire out of the welder so we can use it to fish in between the windshield and the frame and cut through the sealant that's holding the windshield in place. Okay, so I'm just going to take my MIG wire and then feed it in through the sealant and then come out on this side. So continue that all the way around, and then we'll go to the next step. So we tried getting it out, but then ended up chipping a little corner here, and then that led to this crack happening, and then we chipped more here, and now the crack grew to here, and we still can't get these corners undone just because of the angle of everything over here. So I'm pretty confident that I can just pry it off. Nikita, however, does not believe in me. Not a true friend, but we'll see. You can suck my dick right now. You can suck my dick right now.
Well, to be fair, the windshield's about to split in half.
To be fair, though, the spot weld's held.
To be fair, though, you can suck my dick.
Nah, dude. This is OEM. This is OEM install. This is how they do it in the factory, right? $10 says I drop it. $10 says you don't help me and just sit there.
Yeah, I'm not touching that, bro. I'm not touching that.
I think I got this. Oh, baby. Baby. And that's still attached? I think we did a pretty good job. So before I go over making the side hoop, I'm going to go over a few criteria to look for and to look out for when you're building your side hoop. The first one is going to be your visibility. You want to try and get as much visibility as you can from them. And then number 2 is going to be your headroom. As you notice right here, this tucks up right where the A-pillar is at, so I lose absolutely zero visibility when looking at the side, which if you've ever driven a newer car where it has beefy A-pillars, you know how annoying that gets, and especially when you're trying to be racing and you're doing entries at over 60 miles an hour, that plays a big part in getting in your way of visibility, which isn't cool. Just letting you guys know when you're gonna go look for a cage to get done, make sure they actually tuck this up where you're gonna be sitting at, and it's not blocking your visibility, because a lot of reputable shops, what they'll do is they'll make a poorly made side hoop and they'll kind of just make it over here. And the reason they do that is because it's easier. You don't actually have to plan anything out to do that. You space it away from the wall. You're not welding to the chassis, just make it really brief. And then after that, they cover it up with a huge dimple die gussets to make it look really cool. You come pick up your car, you see huge dimple die gussets, you get all happy, not realizing that you just lost 2-3 inches of visibility off each side of your windshield. The position of this also depends on where your driver is sitting at. So let's say if I have a shorter driver that's sitting up further, if I come forward like this, I can actually tuck this bar a lot higher. However, for me who sits back here, I need to push this bar back further because otherwise it's going to start blocking visibility. So there's a big thing when you're building the cage, you have to specifically build it for your driver in mind. So that way you can get the cage and everything fitted around the driver so it's built properly. So if you're building your cage or you're having a shop build your cage, make sure, you kind of do that so that way you don't lose the functionality of your car. The only side effect of tucking up this hard is you're going to lose just a little bit of visibility only towards the right and only looking outside the passenger window. So that's really only going to get affected when you're doing backwards entries and looking out directly from this window. And even then you're only losing that forward area. You're not looking out here. So another goal of the side hoop is going to be your headroom. You're going to want to maximize your headroom again, because when you maximize your headroom, you're going to give as much room as possible from the driver's head. It's all basically like the same exact thing with the main hoop video. You're giving more room from a metal bar being close to your driver's head. Also, if you've ever sat in a car where the side hoop comes down super far right near your head, it's super annoying because you hit your helmet on it almost every single time. However, the way I tucked it up super high like that, it doesn't get in the way at all with the helmet. Since we've already made it, I'm going to show you how we did it. Basically, we had this side hoop already bent up, right? We bent it kind of like roughly to what it was going to be as far as the angles. Then we figured that we got the angles right. Now we just needed to lengthen the center section of it as well as get the offset correct. So what we did for that was we figured out that we needed to extend it about 5 more inches. So we cut out a 5-inch piece of tube right here. Then I just got this L channel, put this tube in here, clamped it in place, clamped this one there, and then I welded this tube to the 5-inch extension. Then I took this out, okay? You picturing with me? And so now we got this 5-inch extension on one of the bends. Then we have the lower bend section right here. We put this in the car. We got both bends to tuck up how we wanted to. Then I butted up the 2 edges, tacked it in place, took it out, put a few more tacks. And then based off of that, I knew how long I needed to make it from each bend. I knew how many degrees each bend has, and I knew the offset of each bend. So that was really a long process, which is why it wasn't recorded, and it also took us 3 side hoops to figure out to do that. But now we know, and we can go on to bending our side hoop. So for the side hoop, we're going to base it off a 7-foot piece. So the first bend we're going to do in the 7-foot piece is a 34-degree bend, okay? And it's going to be 20 inches from the start. This is my considered start of the bend, which is right at the beginning of the die. So 20 inches to the end of the tube. So it's right there, 20 inches. It just needs to be rough again because all these edges are getting trimmed, but you just need to make sure that you have enough on the end to trim. That's what that measurement is for. So the first bend is going to be 34 degrees. So that's 34 degrees right now, and we're going to move on to our second bend. Before we move on, we're going to mark the back of this piece right here. So I'm going to get a red paint marker. So this actually gives out paint, which is what you want. You don't want to use a Sharpie on here because I'm telling you right now it's not going to work. Okay. So now we got our paint marker right here, and with it at 34 degrees, we're going to mark up the back of this plate. Okay, and this is going to be my reference for my next bend that I make. And again, all of this is up to you on how you want to mark it. This is how I'm going to do my measurements. I'm going to show you guys how I'm doing it. So now I have my marker for the end of that die is at, and I'm going to measure to the start of the bend again over here. Okay, so as you can see, this is part of my red mark over here, and I'm going to continue that all the way around. So I just have my piece of cardstock. And there you go. Now you got a more or less clean line all the way around your tube to base your next bend off of. Okay, so the next measurement was 18 1/8 inches from here to here. So we got that down. And then after that, everything has to have an offset to it. So let me explain. As you'll notice with the side hoop, it comes down over here, goes up, and then it bends the opposite way. So there's going to be a skew in your bends because they're not going to be on the same level. If this was bent level with that bend, your bend would end up coming out straight over the head of your passenger. So you need to offset them. I've already explained this in the main hoop video about how to measure it. You can use it with a rotation gauge, or you can do it by putting, you know, some type of a piece of wood or something across the 2 bends and then measuring the angle there and comparing it with the angle on your die. Either way, you're going to have to figure out the rotation of the 2 bends, so that way you can figure out what the offset of the bends needs to be. So that way you can get your side hoop fitting perfectly like it should. 57 degrees. Bless you. Okay. So as you can see right here, 57 degrees. So that's where I'm going to stop it at. So here's the side hoop right now. Kind of just mocked up into place. No trimming whatsoever. As you can see with how long the bottom end is, okay, that has to be trimmed and fit on top of the base plate, which is exactly what's done over here. It's actually going to take trimming on top of that. The back end is going to get trimmed over there, and that's so it can notch over the top tube. So that's going to have to get trimmed. And also something to note, I actually ground down part of the chassis over here, and that's so I can get better fitment with this side hoop and actually tuck it up and be able to weld it. So I'm going to have to grind that down on that side. As you can see right here, it has a bulge in it, so I need to make that flat. Yeah, ignore the rust over here. I'm going to fix all that. But yeah, basically just a ton of trimming, and then after the trimming is done, it can actually get mocked up. Now as far as trimming the side hoop goes, it's basically just trimming the leg up front to go and put it down on the base plate, as well as continuously trimming and notching the back over here that's going towards the main hoop. Now the method I use for notching is the one by going to metalgeek.com and using their tube coping calculator, I believe it's called. So you can click right here if you want to learn all about that. That's going to be in the main hoop video before this. But that's how I'm doing all of my notching to get all my tubing fit right. Okay, so here's the side hoop. It's been trimmed to fit. I've gone and taken down the mill scale and taken it down to bare metal on all the ends that are going to get welded, where the door bars are going to go, also where the roof support's going to go. All of that has been cleaned down to bare metal, so it's ready to weld in. As for the car itself, I've stripped it and taken it down to bare metal up top. I've done the same thing on the corner right here, and those are both the places where the side hoop is actually going to be able to weld to the chassis. So I got those taken care of. The main hoop is already taken down to bare metal as well, so that's ready, and the base plate is ready as well. So now it's just a matter of mocking it up and tacking it in place. So that's it after being tack welded in place. Now remember, everything's only getting tack welded, so just in case anything needs to be removed, it can. And then also a lot of the tack welds are going to need a break in order for us to drop the cage and then fully weld around it in the future. So here's the finished product right here. You can see how it tucks up. Goes back over there. Now the thing is it's making contact with the body right here, so I can actually weld the side hoop to the chassis right there. I can also weld the chassis to the side hoop right here. And of course, when you're directly welding to the chassis like that, it's going to make your chassis a lot stronger and the cage a lot stronger because everything ties in directly to each other, so there's no flex in between the 2 points. It's like legit just directly on each other. One of the best people that I've seen make an even better side hoop than that is MA Motorsports. And the way they do it is they actually put multiple bends over here, so they weld basically their entire side hoop to the side structure of the vehicle. Only reason I didn't do that is because it takes me a lot of effort to put in bends, and so in order for me to get 4 bends or whatever lined up for this thing to tuck up would just be an absolute pain. So I have it welded in 2 places, which still tucks up better than about like 90% of the cages that I've seen. However, Motorsports hands down has it tucking up super hard. Of course, gusset still needs to go over here, but I'm going to do that later on before I paint the car. So for the side hoop, again, it took us until the 3rd time to actually get everything right. Kind of just like with the main hoop. So the first bend is 34 degrees, bend 1, and it's 20 inches from the start of the tubing. The second bend is going to be 18th and 1/8 inch from the outer die, the back mark, that red mark that we made, to the start of the next bend. That's going to be a 57 degree bend with a 32.5 degree offset, as I call it, in the bends. So there you go. Those are the measurements for the side hoop. And of course, follow me on Instagram and Facebook if you want to get updated on the car on a daily basis, as well as Snapchat. Snapchat, I daily update like all day, every day. And then of course, go to offbeatgarage.com if you want some merchandise like this hat. And then also whatmonstersdo.com. You use the coupon code LEDRIFT, you get 15% off, and that's for all like the shirts and say JDM stuff on it. Okay, so that wraps it up for the side hood video. I'm not sure what part of the roll cage is going to be covered in the next video, but I'll see you there. I feel like this build is so behind. You don't say.